Arizona Science is supported by Research Corporation for Science Advancement.
For Arizona Public Media, I'm Leslie Tolbert, Regents Professor Emerita in Neuroscience at the University of Arizona, and this is Arizona Science. Today's guest is Lee Ryan, Professor and Department Head of UA's Department of Psychology and Associate Director of the Evelyn McKnight Brain Institute. Lee's a leading expert in the biological basis of memory and how our memory mechanisms change as we age. She'll be the first speaker in this year's College of Science lecture series, which is focusing on myth-busting science. Thanks for talking with us today, Lee.
Thanks for having me, Leslie.
Let's start with the overall gist of your research program. What are the big questions you're asking about how our brains function and how they change with age?
So I'm very interested in how our brain changes, but in particular the impact that it has on memory function as we grow older. I am a clinical neuropsychologist, so I'm interested in how people can maintain their brain health and their memories throughout their lifespan, but also those things that lead to increased risk for experiencing memory problems as we age. And then for some individuals, why they go on to develop disorders of the aging brain, like Alzheimer's disease.
What is the myth you're trying to bust?
Well, when I was thinking about giving this talk, in a way it was easy because there are so many myths in our society about aging, and most of them, as we know, are negative. But I thought that the overarching theme that I would focus on, because it crops up over and over again in our society and even in our science, is this idea of one size fits all. The idea that every one of us is aging in exactly the same way, that our experience is the same, that our brains are going to change in the same way, and by the way, in a very negative way. And that's just not true.
So you're talking about how individual experience makes us each have individualized connections in our brains?
Individual experiences, but also other influences, genetics, health experiences, your exposure to different kinds of, say, health challenges throughout your lifespan. COVID is a great example where right now many of us have been exposed to COVID. We don't really understand what the long-term consequences of that will be and for whom. So everybody is different, and we actually don't know all of the influences that help us predict how a person is going to age.
Tell us about differences between men and women as we age.
There are differences between men and women. We're not all the same. Certainly we know, for example, that women tend to maintain their memory function a little bit better across the lifespan than men do. Of course, there are many things that influence aging for women that men don't experience. Certainly one of them, a major one that is a topic of study here at the University of Arizona, is the impact of menopause and the changes in hormones that occur throughout our lifespan. That's one major difference between men and women.
The big question then is going to be, what can we do to keep our brains as healthy as possible? I know that that's the goal of your work, trying to figure out what each of us can do as individuals to help ourselves. Can you give us a few clues as to the kinds of things you're starting to see as likely solutions?
Sure, and I'm going to talk about a few of those during my talk for the lecture series, but there are many. But I think we can sum them up by saying good for the heart, good for the brain. So the things that we do in our lives to maintain heart health, we also are learning will maintain brain health as we age. And the amazing news is that as it maintains brain health and decreases the likelihood that we experience memory changes, etc., every one of those things seems to decrease the risk for developing Alzheimer's disease at the same time. Nothing is a cure, but we know that these things are generally good for the brain. They're good for normal aging, but they're also good because they decrease risk for Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, that's such good news. Well, thanks very much for this interview, Lee. We look forward to hearing your lecture. Dr. Lee Ryan is an expert in how our brains change as we age, and she'll be giving the College of Science public lecture on February 1st. You can listen to this and all Arizona Science conversations at azpm.org/Arizona Science. I'm Leslie Tolbert.
Thank you to Research Corporation for Science Advancement for their support of Arizona Science.